Good evening, everyone. In the last session, we started our discussion related to what is dependency injection. So dependency injection is the process of injecting one class object into another class. The process of injecting one class object into another class is called as dependency injection. We can perform dependency injection in three ways. One is using setter injection. Second one is through constructor injection. Third one is by using field injection. So now let's understand this dependency injection with example that we discussed in the last session. Car class wants to talk to engine. So if car directly talk to engine class, then car and engine will be tightly coupled. So to achieve loosely coupling, we are using interfaces concept. Car class will talk to a interface. Interface reference variable can hold any one of the implementation class object. Here I have iEngine. iEngine is a interface. That interface reference variable can hold any one of the implementation class object. All right. Now, here, whatever the interface reference variable is available here, this reference variable we can initialize by using setter method. We can initialize by using constructor. We can initialize this variable directly. If we initialize that variable through setter method, then that is called as a setter injection. So what is setter injection? Setter injection means injecting dependent object into target object using target class setter method. Okay, guys, injecting dependent object into target object using target class setter method is called as setter injection. Next one is constructor injection. What is the meaning of constructor injection? Constructor injection means injecting dependent object into target object using target class constructor. That is called constructor injection. And can we do both setter and constructor injection for the same variable? Yes, we can do setter injection and we can do constructor injection also for the variable. If we perform both setter injection and constructor injection for the same variable, then setter injection will override the constructor injection value. Setter injection will override the constructor injection value. Okay, then we discussed about field injection. So what is the field injection? Injecting the value to the variable directly is called as a field injection. This variable is a private variable. Generally, as per OOPS principles, private variables means we can access those variables only within the class. But how to initialize this variable from outside? That's where reflection API we are using. By using reflection API, we can access private variables also outside of the class. Right now, here we are using reflection API. We are accessing that ENG variable and we are setting the value for the variable from outside. So we are injecting the value to the variable from outside of the class. That is called field injection. Okay, so in three ways we can perform dependency injection in our project. Dependency injection means injecting one class object into another class is called as dependency injection. That dependency injection can be done in three ways. One is a setter injection, second one is constructor injection, and the third one is field injection. All right, good. Guys, next one. Today we are going to talk about a concept called IOC container. Another fundamental concept of the Spring framework, that is IOC container. So what is IOC container? IOC stands for inversion of control. IOC stands for inversion of control. IOC container is responsible for dependency injection in the Spring framework. Now, so in the previous example, whatever we have developed yesterday, in this example, we have taken one interface having a method. That interface implemented by petrol engine class, implemented by diesel engine class, and the car class is dependent on the engine. Now here, I created a main class, right? In this main class, we are creating object for the class called car, and we are injecting the engine, and we are calling the method. Now, let me go for constructor. For the engine variable, I'm taking a parameter as a constructor, iEngine, ENG. Okay, so this dot ENG is equal to ENG. I'm writing a constructor. Now, if I want to create object for the car, car C is equal to new car, new of petrol engine, new of petrol engine, C dot drive. Now here I'm creating object for the car, that is my target class. I'm creating the object for the dependent, that is my dependent object, and I'm injecting dependent object into target object using a constructor. So that means I am performing constructor injection. What I am doing, guys? I'm doing that constructor injection, creating the target class object, creating the dependent class object, and injecting dependent object into target class that I am doing. So IOC container is going to do that. But actually here in our program, I am doing that dependency injection programmatically, run as Java application. So when I run that application, petrol engine object is created, petrol engine object injected into car object, and using that car class object, I'm able to call drive method. Guys, here, can you tell me dependency injection is happening automatically, or I am performing the dependency injection programmatically? Can you tell me now? Dependency injection happening automatically, or I am performing that dependency injection? We are performing that dependency injection programmatically. That means we are creating object for the car class, we are creating the object for the petrol engine, we are injecting the petrol engine object into car object. Okay guys, here we are doing the dependency injection programmatically. Here we no need to do the dependency injection when we go for Spring. In the Spring, there is a concept called IOC container. So what is the IOC? IOC stands for inversion of control. IOC stands for inversion of control. IOC is responsible for dependency injection in Spring applications. Whenever we develop our application by using Spring framework, then we no need to create the object for the dependent classes and the target classes. So IOC container will perform the dependency injection. IOC stands for inversion of control. Inversion of control means our car class requires engine. Instead of we are creating the engine and injecting the engine into car, IOC container will create the dependent object and will inject into target object. So IOC stands for inversion of control. IOC is responsible for dependency injection in Spring applications. Dependency injection means injecting, creating and injecting dependent bean objects into target bean classes. Okay guys, dependency injection means creating and injecting dependent bean objects into target bean classes. That is called dependency injection. IOC will perform the dependency injection. Right now, IOC container will manage life cycle of Spring Beans. IOC container will manage life cycle of Spring Beans. IOC container is responsible for creating and managing dependencies among the classes. IOC stands for inversion of control. IOC is responsible for dependency injection in Spring applications. Dependency injection means creating and injecting dependent bean objects into target bean classes. IOC container will manage life cycle of a bean. Sir, what is the Spring Bean? The next question, what is Spring Bean? So Java classes are available and Spring Beans are available. What is a Spring Bean? The Java class which is managed by IOC container is called as a Spring Bean. We are creating normal Java classes. Now see here, petrol engine is one Java class. Diesel engine is one Java class. Car is one Java class. Main one Java class. Right? These are all the normal Java classes. So when we can call our Java class as a Spring Bean, what is a Spring Bean? The Java class which is managed by IOC container. Any Java class which is managed by IOC container is called as a Spring Bean. What is that, guys? Any Java class which is managed by IOC is called as Spring Bean. So life cycle of the class, that means creating and destroy. Object creation to destruction will be taken care by IOC container. Any Java class whose life cycle for any Java class whose life cycle is managed by whose life cycle, that means creation to destruction. Creation to destruction. Any Java class whose life cycle is managed by IOC, that class is called as a Spring Bean. IOC stands for inversion of control. IOC is responsible for dependency injection in the Spring applications. What is the meaning of dependency injection? Creating and injecting dependent bean objects into target bean objects is called as dependency injection. Who will manage that? IOC. What IOC will do? IOC container will manage life cycle of the Spring Beans. So what is a Spring Bean? Any Java class whose life cycle is managed by IOC is called as a Spring Bean. Okay, guys. Now here we need to tell to IOC container. We need to give them some information to IOC container. What information we will give to IOC container? This is our IOC. Assume that. This is our IOC. IOC is also a program. IOC is also a program which will take care of dependency injection in the Spring application. Now, for this IOC container, we are going to give Java classes as input. We will give Java classes as input for IOC container. Now, and we are going to provide bean configuration. Bean configuration. Right. What is that bean configuration? Bean configuration will represent which classes should be represented as a Spring Bean, which class object should be injected into which class. That information we need to give for the IOC. Java classes we will give as the input for the IOC container, and bean configuration we will give as the input for the IOC container. Then finally, IOC container will produce Spring Beans ready to use. Spring Beans ready to use. So this is what our IOC container is going to do. We need to take the IOC container. We need to take the IOC container. For the IOC container, we need to tell which classes it has to manage. In my project, 100 classes may available or 1000 classes may available in my project. For out of these 1000 classes, which classes should be managed by IOC? We need to provide that information to IOC container. That's where bean configuration comes into picture. Right? Java classes we will give as an input for IOC. Bean configuration we will give as an input for IOC. Then IOC container will perform the DI, nothing but the dependency injection. So once it performs the dependency injection, what will happen? It will create the object for the target classes. It will create the object for the dependent classes. Then it will inject dependent objects into target object. Then it will provide the classes which are ready to use. So the classes which are managing by IOC container, any class object lifecycle is managing by IOC container, that a class is called as a Spring Bean. IOC container will manage the lifecycle for the Spring Beans. Which class is called as a Spring Bean? Any Java class whose lifecycle is managed by IOC container is called as Spring Bean. Guys, are you clear? What is IOC container? What is the Spring Bean? What is dependency injection theoretically? Did you understand theoretically? Bean or Spring Bean, both are same. Spring Bean and bean, both are same. Guys, IOC container, dependency injection, Spring Bean. These are three important terminologies. IOC stands for inversion of control. IOC is responsible for dependency injection in the Spring applications. What is dependency injection? Dependency injection means creating and injecting dependent bean objects into target bean classes. IOC container will manage life cycle of the Spring Beans. What is a Spring Bean? What is a life cycle? Object creation to object destruction is called as life cycle. So what is the Spring Bean? Any Java class whose life cycle is managed by IOC, that is called as Spring Bean. Any Java class whose life cycle is managed by IOC, that class is called as a Spring Bean. Okay guys, now how to create IOC container or how to start the IOC container? We need to provide our Java classes and configuration as input for IOC. We need to provide Java classes plus bean configuration. We need to provide Java classes plus bean configuration as input for IOC. Then IOC will perform DI and provides Spring Beans which are ready to use. We need to provide Java classes plus bean configuration as input for IOC. Then IOC will perform DI and provides Spring Beans which are ready to use. So our project may have 1000 classes. Out of these 1000 classes, which is a target class, which is a dependent class, which classes should be injected to which class? Car class should be injected to engine. Brake classes should be injected to engine. Engine should be injected into car. Car should be injected into vehicle, like that. So which classes are target classes? Which classes are dependent classes? What kind of dependency injection it has to perform? Does it has to follow setter injection or constructor injection or field injection? What kind of injection we want to perform? That information we need to provide for the IOC container. That's where bean configuration we will provide as an input for the IOC. Java classes will provide as input for the IOC. Then finally, IOC will return Spring Beans which are ready to use. That IOC container will take care of the bean life cycle. That means creating the object for the class, destroying the object of that class will be taken care by IOC. That's why we are saying IOC will take care of bean life cycle. All right. So any Java class whose life cycle is managed by IOC is called as a Spring Bean. Good. How to create IOC container? How to start IOC in Spring? How to start IOC in Spring? There are multiple ways to start the IOC in the Spring, guys. So one is by using Bean Factory. Second one is by using application context. So now I want to start my IOC container. Okay, how many ways we can start our IOC container? We can start the IOC container in two ways. One is by using Bean Factory interface. Another one is by using application context interface. So this is the most recommended approach. Application context. Okay, so how to start IOC in the Spring? Bean Factory and application context. These are the interfaces. By using these two interfaces, we can start our IOC container. Okay, what this IOC container will do? It will manage the life cycle of the Spring Bean. How to configure our Java class as a Spring Bean? Okay, we can represent the Java class as a Spring Bean in two ways. We can represent Java class as Spring Bean in two ways. One is by using XML approach. Second one is by using annotation approach. By using XML also, we can represent our Java class as a Spring Bean. By using annotations also, we can represent our Java class as a Spring Bean. So if you go for XML approach, we are going to write bean ID and bean class. Like this. Like this, we can write bean ID and bean class, bean tag. So by writing this bean tag in the XML file, we can represent our Java class as a Spring Bean. When you go for annotation approach, how to represent our Java class as a Spring Bean, there are several annotations available. At the rate component available, at the rate service available, at the rate repository is available, at the rate service, at the rate repository, etc. Like that, there are several annotations available to represent our Java class as a Spring Bean. XML approach, it is outdated. Spring Boot will not support for XML. When Spring Boot is not there in the market, when Spring Boot not released into market, at that time, people use it to develop the project by using XML configurations. If you are using Spring, you can represent your Java class as a Spring Bean by using this syntax, XML. But in the Spring Boot, we are not going to use XML. I will show you 1 or 2 examples with XML by using Spring Core. But in the Spring Boot, completely we are going to work with annotations. What annotations are available to represent Java class as a Spring Bean? There are several annotations are available to work with Java class as a Spring Bean. Component, service, repository. Nowadays, in the industry, which approach people are following? Annotation approach. In the industry, which approach people are following? In the industry, people are following annotation approach, not the XML approach. Okay, guys. So how to what is a Spring Bean? Any Java class whose life cycle is managed by IOC is called as a Spring Bean. We can represent Java class as a Spring Bean in 2 ways. One is by using XML, second one is by using annotation. XML approach, we are going to configure bean ID and bean class. Annotation approach, at the rate component, at the rate service, and at the rate repository. So which approach we are following in the real time? In the real time, we are following annotation approach. Spring Boot will not support for annotations. In Spring, we can use both XML and annotation approaches. Okay, Spring Boot will support only annotations, no XML. So in the Spring Boot, XMLs are avoided. So going forward, we are not going to work with XML approach in our course, guys. 1 or 2 examples only I will show with the XML. The remaining examples I'm going to show with the annotations only. Okay, guys. Are you clear? Could you please read this? This is very important. What is the Spring Bean? Could you please read this? What is Spring Bean? What is Spring Bean? Come on, guys. What is Spring Bean? All right. How many ways we can represent Java class as a Spring Bean? 2 ways. One is by using XML approach. Second one is by using annotation
approach.
Right. We can represent our Java class as a Spring Bean in 2 ways. One is by using XML approach. Another one is by using annotation approach. Now, when we are working with the Spring, we can use both XML approach and annotation approaches because Spring will support for both. Whereas when you go for Spring Boot, Spring Boot will support only annotations, no XMLs. XML configuration is removed from the Spring Boot. All right, good. Now, okay, we understood what is IOC container, what is the dependency injection, what is the setter injection, what is the constructor injection, what is the field injection, what is IOC container, what is the Spring Bean, and how to start the IOC in the Spring Bean. How to start IOC in the Spring? How to start IOC in the Spring now? By using Bean Factory interface, we can start it. By using application context also, we can start it. Okay, guys. By using Bean Factory or by using application context also, we can start it. I'm going with the application context now. Example. Application context. Application context is equal to new class path XML application context. String config file. As we discussed, Bean configuration file we need to provide as an input for the IOC container. Based on the Bean configuration file only, IOC container will understand which classes it has to manage, which dependency injection it has to perform, what is the target class, what is the dependent class, that will be identified by IOC container through that Bean configuration file. Application context is equal to new class path XML application context. Application context is equal to new class path XML application context string config file. So what is that config file? Config file represents Bean definitions, right? That means which is a target class, which is a dependent class, how dependent class should be injected into target class, which dependency injection it has to perform. All that information we are going to configure in our Bean configuration file. So like this, we are going to start our IOC container. So once IOC container started, it will read the Bean configuration file. Note, Bean configuration file contains Bean definitions. Bean definitions. I mean, what is the target class? What is the target class? What is dependent? Target class, dependent class, type of dependency injection. Target class, dependent class, okay, dependency injection type, target class, dependent class, dependency injection type. All that information will be available in the Bean configuration file. Bean configuration file contains Bean definitions, target class, dependent class, dependency injection type. All this information will be available in the Bean configuration file. When IOC container started, it will read Bean definitions from Bean configuration file and it will perform dependency injection. Okay, guys. It will read Bean definitions from Bean configuration file and it will perform dependency injection. All right. Are you getting my point? How to start IOC in the Spring? By using Bean Factory, by using application context. So how to start that IOC by using application context? Application context is equal to new class path XML application context, and we are providing Bean configuration file as the input. Bean configuration file contains Bean definitions. What is the meaning of a Bean definition? What is a target class? What is a dependent class? And what is dependency injection type? So which type it has to use? It has to use a setter injection or it has to use a constructor injection. That a type we are going to specify by using dependency injection type. And next one, when IOC container started, it will read Bean definitions from Bean configuration file and it will perform dependency injection. Are you clear? What is dependency injection? What is IOC container? Read it. IOC container. IOC stands for inversion of control. It is responsible for dependency injection in the Spring applications. Dependency injection means creating and injecting dependent objects into target objects. IOC container will manage life cycle of the Spring Beans. So we need to provide Java classes and bean configurations as an input for IOC. Then IOC will perform the dependency injection and it will provide the beans which are ready to use. What is a Spring Bean? Any Java class whose life cycle is managed by IOC, it is called as Spring Bean. We can represent a Java class as a Spring Bean in two ways. One is by using XML approach, another one is by using annotation approach. In Spring, we can use both XML and annotation. Spring Boot will support only annotations, no XMLs. How to start IOC in the Spring? So by using Bean Factory and by using application context, we can start the IOC. I have given the example code. Application context is equal to new class path XML application context. String config file we are going to provide as input. What is that config file? Config file nothing but our bean configuration file. What will be there in the bean configuration file? Bean configuration file will contain bean definitions. Bean configuration file will contain bean definitions. What is the meaning of a bean definition? Target class. What is the target class? What is the dependent class? Dependency injection type. So car class object should be created. Engine class object should be created. Engine object should be injected into car through constructor or through setter. How it has to inject, which dependency injection mechanism it has to use, that we are going to specify by using dependency injection type. When IOC container started, it will read bean definitions from bean configuration file and it will perform dependency injection. Okay, guys. Application context is an interface. It is having an implementation class. Class path XML application context. Whenever we create object for this class with this config file, it will start IOC container by giving bean configuration file as an input. So when the IOC container started, it will read the data from the bean configuration file. It will read the data from the bean configuration file and it is going to read the data from the bean configuration file and it is going to create the objects for that. How to start IOC in the Spring. Come on, guys. Understood, all of you? Perfect. Theoretically, we understood. Now we need to start the practicals, guys. Theoretically, we understood. Now we need to understand the practicals. Okay. Now, people are having questions. Sir, why bean factory and application context? Why application context is recommended? Why not Bean Factory? So Bean Factory, it is outdated. I will compare the differences between the Bean Factory and application context also. First, we are going to start with the application context. Later, I will tell you what are the differences between the Bean Factory and application context also. All right, good, fine. Developing first program using Spring Core. Spring first application development using Spring Core module. Okay, so first application development using Spring Core module. Now, so what are the steps we need to follow? Okay guys, I'm going to use the Spring Toolsuite IDE here guys. I will give the link to download that Toolsuite IDE also. I'm using JDK 1.8 version. Prerequisites JDK 1.8 version and STS IDE. That is my Spring Toolsuite IDE. Okay, so I'm using JDK 1.8. If you have 11 or 17, that is also no problem. I have 1.8 version in my system and I'm having Spring Toolsuite IDE, that is STS. So if you don't have STS, don't worry. After this session, I will share the link to download that STS IDE. Okay, Spring Toolsuite IDE. If you have IntelliJ or Eclipse, that is also fine, no problem. Prerequisites. First step, create Maven project in IDE. Create Maven project in IDE. Second step, add Spring Core dependency in pom.xml file. Create Maven project in the IDE. Whenever Maven we are using as a build tool, whenever we create a Maven project, pom.xml file will be created where we are going to configure dependencies of our project. I want to develop my project by using Spring. So I need to add the Spring dependency. So add Spring Core dependency in pom.xml file. You can search for the dependency in mvnrepository.com. Add the Spring Core dependency in the pom.xml file. We can search for the dependency in the mvnrepository.com. Okay. Create Java classes. Create Java classes. Required Java classes. Create required Java classes. Create Bean configuration file. Create Bean configuration file and configure Bean definitions. Start the IOC container. Create main class. Create main class to start. Create main class and start IOC container to test the application. So these are the steps that we need to perform to complete our first application development using core module. JDK 1.8 version and Spring Toolsuite IDE. Those are the prerequisites. Then create Maven project by using IDE. We need to use Spring as a dependency. Our project is developing by using Spring. So Spring dependency we need to add in the pom.xml. mvnrepository.com. From there you can search for the dependency. Search for the dependency, add the dependency in the pom.xml. So with that, we will get the dependencies of the Spring Core. Then create required Java classes. So here we are going to create our Java classes as iEngine, Petrol Engine, iEngine interface, Petrol Engine, Diesel Engine, and car. Create Bean configuration file and configure Bean definitions. Then create main class and start IOC container to test the application. Are you guys clear with the procedure to develop our first application by using IOC container and dependency injection. Are you guys clear with the steps to develop our first application, guys? All right. Okay, let me do that. Guys, observe carefully. Now we are entering into our practicals. File, new, Maven project. Maven is a build tool. Maven is a build tool. Now create a simple project, guys. Observe carefully. File, new, Maven project. Create a simple project. Now group ID, I'm giving that as in.ashok IT. You can give anything. Artifact ID 01 IOC application. This is my first IOC application with the dependency injection. 01 IOC DI app. That's it. Click on finish. So with this, our first project got created. That is a Maven project. A Maven project got created. Okay. So once this Maven project is created, you can see pom.xml. So pom.xml is a Maven configuration file. In this pom.xml, we need to configure dependencies. That means I want to use a Spring. So let me go for dependencies. Inside the dependencies, we need to configure a dependency. Which dependency we need to configure? Spring Core dependency we need to configure. How to configure Spring Core dependency? Let us go for mvnrepository.com. Let us search for the dependency. MVN repository. Let me search with Spring Core. Spring Core. What is the latest version of the Spring Core? 6.00. 6.0.4 is the latest version. So let me take that 6.04, the latest version of the Spring Core. Copy this, add it in the pom.xml. Under dependencies, I have added the dependencies tag. Inside the dependencies, I have added Spring Core dependency. I have added Spring Core dependency. All right, guys. So create a Maven project in IDE, simple Maven project. Add the core dependency in the pom.xml. Search here. I'm searching for the dependencies in the mvnrepository.com. So I got the dependency. Whatever the dependency I got, I have added the dependency in the pom.xml like this. Inside the dependencies, I'm adding a dependency. Now, when I add the Spring Core dependency, you can check here. Spring Core dependency I got, Spring Core jar file I got, Spring JCL, Java console logging. 2 jar files downloaded by Maven. 2 jar files downloaded by Maven. Are you clear? Yes, perfect. Next one, I need to create the Java classes like diesel engine class or whatever the engines we have, right? iEngine, petrol engine, diesel engine, car. Those classes we need to create. Let me create new class in dot ashokit.beans. First, I'm creating an interface called iEngine. I will represent this as an interface iEngine. Inside this, I'm writing public int start. That's it. Already we developed this application. iEngine, I'm taking as an interface. For that interface, there are 2 implementations. One is petrol engine. Petrol engine. Public class petrol engine implements iEngine. Override the method start method. Okay. So what I will do? System.out.println petrol engine started. Petrol engine started. Return 1. Something like this. A positive number. So petrol engine is one class which is implementing iEngine interface. So similarly, let me take another class. Diesel engine. Diesel engine is also implementing iEngine interface. Okay, override the start method. So now I will say that system.out.println diesel engine started. return 1. That's it. iEngine is one interface. Petrol engine is implementation class for interface. Diesel engine class is implementation class for interface. That's it. Now let me create one class called car. Car is dependent on engine. Okay. Private iEngine eng. Let me write one setter method first. Public void set eng iEngine eng. This dot eng is equal to eng. That means I'm trying to initialize this variable by using setter method. There is nothing new, guys. There is nothing new. There is nothing new. So am I writing anything new here, or everything already we developed yesterday? Interface creation, implementation class creation, car class creation. Am I doing anything new? No. No. Okay, right. Public void drive. In order to drive the car, I'm going to call engine.start. Okay, status. If status greater than or equal to 0 or greater than or equal to 1, I can say system.out.println journey started. Okay, else I can say system.out.println engine trouble. Engine trouble. That's it. Can you understand this program? Now, car is a independent class or car is a dependent class? Can I drive the car without engine? Can I drive the car without engine? No. Car is dependent on the engine. Car is tightly coupled with the engine or car is loosely coupled with the engine? Car is tightly coupled with the engine or car is loosely coupled with the engine? Car is loosely coupled with the engine. Car is dependent on the engine, but it is loosely coupled. How we are able to achieve loosely coupling between the car and engine? How we are able to achieve loosely coupling between the car and engine? Because we are using interface. Because we are using interface. Okay, how to now do I need to initialize that interface variable, or we no need to initialize that interface variable? Do we need to initialize the interface variable, or we no need to initialize the interface variable? We need to initialize. If we don't initialize, then we will get the null pointer exception. Okay, do you want me to initialize, or we can use IOC to initialize? Do you want to initialize programmatically, or we want to use IOC to initialize? We want IOC to initialize. Can you tell me what is IOC? Can you guys tell me what is IOC? Can you guys tell me what is IOC? IOC stands for inversion of control. It is responsible for dependency injection. Instead of we are creating and injecting the objects, we can ask IOC to perform the dependency injection. IOC is responsible to manage the dependencies in the project. One car is dependent, one object is dependent on the another object. So IOC is responsible to perform that dependency injection. So IOC stands for inversion of control, which is responsible to perform the dependency injection. So can you tell me what is the dependency injection? Can you tell me what is dependency injection? One class dependent on the another class, that is called as dependency injection. One class which is dependent on the another class, right? Then we need to perform the dependency injection. Injecting one class object into another class is called as dependency injection. In the Spring, programmer is responsible for dependency injection, or IOC container is responsible for dependency injection. Programmer is responsible or IOC is responsible? IOC is responsible for dependency injection. How many ways we can create IOC in the Spring? How many ways we can create IOC? 2 ways now. What is input for IOC? What is input for IOC, guys? Bean configuration file is the input. Bean configuration file is the input. What will be there in the bean configuration file? Bean configuration file is input for IOC. What will be there in the bean configuration file? Bean definitions will be available. That means which class should be managed by IOC, which is a target class, which is a dependent class. All that information will be available in the bean configuration file. Now observe carefully how I am going to create the bean configuration file. Okay, guys. Now I need to configure my classes as beans. Okay. In the main Java, right click, new. Can you see one option? Can you see one option? New configuration file. Right click on main Java, new bean configuration file. Can you see the option? Yes. Here you can give any name. You can give any name, beans.xml. You can give any name for that. I have given the name as beans.xml. Okay. With this, my beans configuration file is created. In the main Java, I created beans.xml. Now, inside the beans.xml, I'm going to write bean. Bean ID is equal to petrol engine. Class is equal to petrol engine. I'm configuring petrol engine as one Spring Bean. So we already discussed how to configure Java class as a Spring Bean. In the XML, we will write a bean tag. Bean ID is equal to petrol engine. Class is equal to petrol engine. Similarly, bean ID is equal to diesel engine and class is equal to diesel engine. I'm representing petrol engine as one Spring Bean and I'm representing diesel engine as one Spring Bean. Okay, to understand, let me write a zero param constructor. What is happening here? System.out.println petrol engine object created. Petrol engine constructor. Let me write here. Diesel engine constructor. Zero param constructor to understand when that object is created. Okay, diesel engine constructor and petrol engine constructor. Car class. There is a setter method. Let me write a zero param constructor to understand. System.out.println car constructor. Okay, here I am writing system.out.println set engine method called. Set engine method called. Petrol engine class having zero param. Why I am writing the constructor C here? Why I am writing the constructor C here? These constructors are used to understand whether the object is created for the class or not. Okay, guys. So petrol engine constructor, diesel engine constructor I have taken, car class constructor I have taken, and beans.xml. Petrol engine class I configured as a Spring Bean. Diesel engine class I configured as a Spring Bean. Car class I will configure as a Spring Bean. Car class is equal to car. Car class also I configured as a Spring Bean. Okay, so can I say there are 3 bean definitions available in the bean configuration file? Guys, can I say there are 3 bean definitions available in my bean configuration file? Yes, yes. Now, just I configure the classes as Spring Beans. Am I telling to IOC to perform dependency injection? Am I telling IOC to perform dependency injection? No. I need to tell IOC to perform dependency injection. What type of dependency injection we want? What type of dependency injection we want? Constructor or setter? Setter. I have written a setter method to initialize the variable. I need to tell to IOC, yeah, IOC, create the object for the petrol engine, create the object for the diesel engine, create the object for the car, inject petrol engine object into car object. Okay, so to tell that inside the car, I'm going to specify a tag called property. Property name is equal to engine, ref is equal to petrol engine. That's it. That's it. Inside the car class definition, I'm writing a property because car class is having a property called engine. Property means variable. Car property is engine. Now, inside the car, there is a property called engine. That engine should refer to petrol engine. That means what will happen? Petrol engine object will be created. Petrol engine object will be injected into car object. This is our bean configuration file. This is our bean configuration file. So in this bean configuration file, what we are doing, we are configuring Java classes as Spring Beans, and we are telling the IOC to perform dependency injection. Observe our bean configuration file. Here diesel engine is optional. I don't want a diesel engine. I want to inject only petrol engine. Petrol engine is configured as one Spring Bean. Car is configured as one Spring Bean, and we are telling to IOC inject petrol engine object into car object eng variable. Car property eng. Property name is equal to eng. Property tag represents setter injection. When we want to perform setter injection into our target class, we will specify property tag. Which variable? Eng. Which object you want to inject? This object I want to inject. So ref is equal to petrol engine. Ref is equal to petrol engine. Are you clear with my point? What is the purpose of a property tag? What is the purpose of a property tag? Property tag represents a setter injection. What is the purpose of property tag? Property tag represents setter injection. Are you clear? So now do you understand what is bean configuration file and what we are writing in the bean configuration file? Guys, now do you understand what is bean configuration file and why we need to go for bean configuration file? In the bean configuration file, we are writing our Java class as a Spring Bean, and we are telling petrol engine class should be represented as a Spring Bean, car class should be represented as a Spring Bean. Inside the car class, we have to inject petrol engine as a dependent. That means we are configuring dependency injection through setter. We are giving instruction to IOC. In the yesterday session, we created the objects, we injected the objects. Today, are we going to create the objects, or we are informing the IOC to perform the dependency injection? We are informing the IOC to perform the dependency injection. Today, I'm explaining you setter injection with IOC container. So tomorrow we will perform constructor injection. When I perform constructor injection, this tag will change. Property tag is used only for setter injection. If you want to go for constructor injection, there is a tag called constructor arg. Constructor arg tag is used for constructor injection, but I want to go for setter. To perform the setter, we will use a property tag. To perform the setter injection, we will use property tag. Okay, are you guys clear with bean configuration file? I'm telling that inject petrol engine into car. Okay, very good. Now, finally, let us create one main class. in.ashokit.main. I'm going to create one class called app. Inside this app class, I'm going to start my IOC container. Okay, how to start IOC container? Two ways: bin factory and application context. I'm going for application context. Application context. Application context is not coming. The reason is context dependency is required, not just core. We need to add context dependency. Configuration related context module we need to use. When we go for context module, then we are going to get application context. Correct. Okay. Dependency I have changed it, guys. Instead of core, I'm using context dependency. Spring context dependency. Then I'm getting application context. Application context is equal to new class path XML application context config location. My config is beans.xml. This is my config file. So where is this config file? This config file is available in the main Java folder only, beans.xml. I will share the folder structure of the project, guys. So this is my project folder structure. Inside the main Java only, my beans.xml is available. So beans available in the beans package. Main package contains my app class. Inside the app class, what I am doing? Application context is equal to new class path XML application context. Okay, I'm not doing anything. Just I am starting my IOC container. Starting IOC container. Let us see what will happen when I start my IOC container. So if you observe, for the IOC container, we are giving bean configuration file as a input. That is my beans.xml. In the beans.xml, petrol class, petrol engine configured as one Spring Bean, car class configured as one Spring Bean. That bean configuration file I'm giving as the input for my IOC container. Let's run the program. Run as Java application. It failed. Can you see? Unsupported class version error. Class path XML application context compiled by most recent version of Java runtime. The version of a Java runtime only recognizes the class files version up to 52.0. So there is a version issue, unsupported class version, right? JRE 1.8 is 1.5 is available. Let me change this version. Build path, configure build path, JRE 1.5 available, edit up to 1.8. I'm adding JDK 1.8 to the build path. Now run it, run as Java application. Again, it is failed. Most recent version of the Java runtime, class version 61.0, file version up to 52.0. There is a Java version issue. Okay, let me go for previous versions of the Spring, guys. Maybe Spring latest version having some issue. 5.2.2 dot release. Let me take the Spring 5.2.2 dot release. Let me try with this old version. Yeah, 5.2.22 dot release. I changed the Spring old version. Yes, update this, refresh it. Now go to app class, run as Java application. Yeah. Now can you see that when I just start my IOC container, petrol engine constructor is executed, car class constructor is executed, set engine method got called. With this, can I say IOC container creating object for the bean classes, IOC container performing the dependency injection also? Come on, guys. Did I ask IOC to create the object, or it created automatically when I start the IOC container? Did I ask IOC to create the objects, or IOC created the objects automatically? How IOC understood that it has to create the objects automatically? Based on the bean configuration file. We provided bean configuration file as a input for the IOC container. When we provide the bean configuration file as input for the IOC container will read the bean definition, petrol engine, create the object, car definition, create the object for the car class having a property name is equal to ENG, ref is equal to petrol engine. That means car class having a variable, that variable having a setter method. For that setter method, we need to pass petrol engine as a dependent. That's it. Setter method is called. So how IOC understood that it has to call the setter method? Because of this property tag. If I remove the property tag from here, if I run my application, setter method will not be called. Run as a Java application. See, petrol engine constructor executed, petrol engine class object is created, car class object is created, but dependency injection not happened. So to perform the dependency injection through setter method, I'm writing a property tag. Property name is equal to ENG, ref is equal to petrol engine. That means here inside the car class variable, petrol engine object is injected through this setter method. So I am performing the dependency injection, or my IOC performing the dependency injection. Are we performing the dependency injection, or IOC performing the dependency injection? IOC. See here, bean configuration file we are giving as input, Java classes we are giving as input. It is giving the Spring beans which are ready to use. So once the objects are created by IOC, how to get that object? Context dot get bean. To get the object from the IOC container, to get the Spring bean, context dot get bean. Which bean? Car bean I want. Car bean is created by IOC container. I'm getting the car dot drive. That's it. Right? I configured my classes as a Spring Beans here, and I'm starting my IOC container by giving the bean configuration file as an input. Once IOC container started, we have seen that classes are loading, objects are creating, dependency injection happened. Then it is ready with the beans. I want to get the bean from IOC. Get bean method we are calling. Context dot get bean of car dot class. So we are getting the car object. Car dot drive. Then journey will start. Now you see, petrol engine started, journey started. Petrol engine constructor executed, car class constructor is executed. Setter method also called. Petrol engine started, journey started. So are we creating the objects, or we are starting IOC container to create the objects? Are we creating the objects, or IOC container creating the objects? Yesterday, we performed a dependency injection. Today, who is performing dependency injection? Today, dependency injection is performed by IOC container. Today, dependency injection performed by IOC container. So can you guys tell me what is IOC container? Can you guys tell me what is IOC container? IOC container is used to manage dependency injection. IOC container is used to manage dependency injection. Are you clear? Are you guys clear? So today we developed our first example by using Spring Core IOC. Prerequisites: JDK 1.8, STS IDE, create Maven project in the IDE. Okay, then add Spring context dependency, guys. Add the Spring context dependency in the pom.xml. Search in the mvn repository.com. So this is the dependency I'm adding. 5.2 dependency. 6 I'm not using. For Spring 6, JDK 17 is required. I have JDK 8 in my system. So I'm going with the Spring 5.2. Then required Java classes, iEngine, petrol engine, diesel engine, and car. Yesterday we created them. Create the bean configuration file and configure the bean definitions. Note here property tag represents setter injection. Here property tag represents setter injection. Property name is equal to ENG, ref is equal to petrol engine. The meaning is I'm telling to inject petrol engine object into car through setter method. Then create the main class. In the main class, I'm starting the IOC container. I'm giving the beans.xml as input. When the IOC container is started, all the bean definitions will be loaded, objects will be created, dependency injection will happen. So what is this? Getting the bean object from IOC. Get bean. What is the purpose of get bean? Getting bean object from IOC. Context.get bean of car. It will give the car class object. Once the car class object is available, I'm calling drive method, which is going to call the drive. By the time when I call the drive, already setter method is executed. This variable will be initialized with the petrol engine. So when I call the drive method, petrol engine is started and the journey started. All of you clear with the program? Tomorrow we will understand internals of the program. So today we are able to develop our first application by using Spring framework with dependency injection. Today we are able to understand our first application by using Spring framework with dependency injection. Tomorrow we will understand internals of this application. How IOC container is starting, why the bean objects are creating immediately, what is this application context, all that stuff we are going to discuss in the tomorrow session. If you want to inject a diesel engine, then you need to configure diesel engine as a Spring Bean. You need to refer to the diesel engine. Only one engine we can inject at a time. Today I injected petrol engine. Tomorrow I will inject a diesel engine. Understood, guys? Can you practice this example before coming to tomorrow's class? Can you practice this example before coming to tomorrow's session? Okay, so tomorrow we will understand more internals of this example, guys. Okay, thank you, guys. So thanks for attending today's session. Today's session is very important. I will upload the class notes in the portal. So please go through these class notes and develop our first application. Develop our first application. So tomorrow we will see internals of our first application. Okay, thank you. Thank you. STS download link I will share in the group, guys. STS download link I will share in the group. Good. Yeah. Now, anybody having questions, you can ask me. I'm open for questions now. Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. Sir,
Yeah.
one question. If I download any other versions other than JDK 8, would it be a problem if I have JDK 18?
No problem. Then you can add the latest version of the Spring.
Okay, I have to go right and I have to download the
Yeah,
latest.
no problem. No problem.
So according to JDK, the version keeps changing, sir, here. Spring context version.
Yes, so Spring 6 version made that Java 17 is minimum.
Okay. How do we know
Okay.
that, sir, which JDK
No.
will work with?
In the Spring documentation, they will tell you new versions of the Spring compatible with which JDK version. If you read the Spring documentation, you will understand that.
Okay, sir.
Sir, in the STS, I'm not able to see that Spring Bean configuration file option, sir. What to do?
You can copy this, sir. So if you are not able to see that, create one XML file and keep this configuration. That's it. Directly you can do this. In the Eclipse, if you are not getting the bean configuration file, create one XML file and keep this content.
Not in the Eclipse, sir, in STS only.
In the STS, definitely you will get it, sir. Right click, new bean configuration file. If you don't have it, go to others and type like this. Bean configuration file will come. If it is not available, no problem. You create a normal XML file and you keep the content which I have given.
Okay. Okay.
I have a couple of
So
doubts.
what is the different snapshot version and release version?
That we will discuss later, sir. So for a time being, forget about what is snapshot, what is release. That we will discuss in the Maven classes. Okay.
I have a couple of doubts. Ashok.
Yeah, sir. Please tell me.
Will you cover Spring security also in this? part
Please
of
read the
course?
course content document. This question asked more than 100 times in the class. Please go through the course content.
Okay, what about the workshop, Maven workshop?
Maven workshop, it is free for all. You can attend on Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. thank you.
Ashok sir, how to access the source code?
How to?
Access source code, sir, project source code.
Sir, you joined in the course to download my code or to develop the code on your own?
Okay, sir.
If you take my source code, then where is the use? What is the use for you? You paid 7,000 rupees. If you copy my code, then when you will learn the coding part? If you want, I can share the code. That is not important. I want you to develop this project on your own. That is my intention.
Okay, sir.
Okay, try karo. If you are not able to do that, I will explain once again. I want you to become independent
Yes, sir.
programmer.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Ashok
Sir,
sir.
may I know what is the shortcut you are using for the package name? Like in the class, you are using some kind of shortcuts. Can you please tell?
Control Shift O. I told you to watch one video, Eclipse shortcuts. Did you watch that? No. You people will not do assignment, whatever I am giving.
We are
told you-
using IntelliJ.
Sure, sir, I'll do it.
Will you provide the shortcuts for IntelliJ also? if
Yes,
it's
I will provide a
possible?
document for IntelliJ shortcuts also. For Eclipse
Thank
and
you.
Spring
Thank you
Tool
so
Suite,
much.
I gave you a video which contains 20 plus shortcuts in the Eclipse. Please go through that
Yeah.
video. And so many people asking about the course content. I told more than 100 times. Please go through course content document in our website.
Nothing.
Hello, sir. What is the difference between Bean Factory and application context?
That is not today's topic. You will understand that in the tomorrow session.
Hello, sir.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir. I have a doubt. If one class contain a parameterized constructor, means how IOC container will be created?
Tomorrow we will talk about that constructor injection. Right? Today we discussed about only setter injection.
Okay.
Tomorrow you will get more clarity on the IOC container internal working process.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So
Ashok sir,
everything you can't understand in one day. If I give you 1 kg cake, you can't eat in single shot, right? You need to take piece by piece. Similarly, whatever I explained today, if you have any questions on that, you can ask me. How to work with the constructor injection? What is the difference between Bean Factory application context? I have not explained them as of now. Tomorrow I will explain them.
Ashok sir, hi, good evening.
Very good evening.
I want to ask, in my company we are using Gradle. So is there any video where you have talked about Gradle?
So this week, Raghu sir conducting workshop on the Maven. Next week, I will conduct workshop on the Gradle. Okay.
Okay, thank you. That will be free of cost?
Yes, free of cost.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Hi, sir.
Hello.
Sir, please create one group for our discussion purpose.
Sure, I will do that. Actually, I create a WhatsApp group. People are asking who is from Orissa, who is from Pune, who is from Andhra Pradesh. Ye kya baat hai, bhai? That's why I removed that chat option. Unnecessary talks are doing in the group. So group is created for technical discussion. People are misusing that. That's why I disabled that chat option. Okay. If
sir.
everyone agrees that you will discuss only technical topics, then I will enable the chat option.
Yes, sir, sure.
Sir, one last doubt, sir.
Yeah.
When you are writing the Spring Bean definition file,
Right.
while typing the class, when the class equal
Control space.
Oh, no, car is coming, sir. You are selecting car, but automatically the fully qualified class.
Yes,
name
sir.
is
That is
coming.
what control
Okay,
space.
automatically it will come, sir.
Control space.
Control space.
Control space. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Perfect. I will upload the class notes. So please practice this example, guys. Don't wait for the source code to be shared. I want you to develop the project on your own. Then only your coding skill will improve. We'll meet in the tomorrow session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.